We have come to these waters hoping to make contact with a magical creature from the sea who has adopted a small Nova Scotian village.
Current is so strong here.
Yeah, this thing go together. There, it snaps in.
Okay. In the company of scientist Jonathan Bird from Oceanic Research Group of Massachusetts, we want to observe and record the behavior of a rare creature. For me, it is an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. One morning, about 4 summers ago, the people of this tiny village of 400 souls woke up to find they'd been given a gift from the sea, a small wonder they dubbed Wilma the Whale.
First time I ever saw her, I thought, oh, there must be a boat leaving so early in the morning. And it wasn't a boat at all, it was her.
Everybody talks about her. Everybody knows her. She's just part of the town.
If it wasn't for Wilma, there'd be nothing here for us, I guess.
Nothing, because the fishing that had sustained this village for more than 500 years had suddenly fallen off, and the jobs went with it. But then, hope arrived in the form of a baby beluga.
Oh, she brings in a lot of tourists, like people from away in that. They'll come in, they'll say, here, you've got a whale.
No one had ever seen or heard of anything like it.
All you have to do is go near her and she comes right to you.
A whale who loves humans, a kind of ambassador from the sea.
We've been very good friends, yes. I often say to my wife, she's the other woman in my life.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
Never in my experience, Mary, have I seen a whale with the kind of personality and just a delightful thing to be with.
Now she is perhaps 5 years old, but Wilma was just a baby when deep-sea diver Jim Johnson first spotted her.
I was filming over here. Suddenly, in my viewfinder, is this beluga whale. I said, oh, well, hello. And she just cautiously approached me, and she went around me a few times, and she'd roll over to get a good look at me. And she came over, and she put her melon right on my hand, which is the bulbous thing on their forehead. And ever since that day, she knows me.
Jim has lived much of his life on the ocean, but he's never experienced anything like this before. Neither has marine scientist and author Jonathan Bird.
And it's amazing, a wild animal that's reaching out to us to have a fun day. She's incredibly, incredibly rare. To my knowledge, this is the only beluga ever that has ever done this, anywhere in the world.
But how did a baby beluga who properly belongs in Arctic waters find her way here? And why does she seem to enjoy the company of humans so much? Jim Johnson believes he knows at least part of the story.
A few years ago, while I was walking down the beach that we can see over here, I found what appeared to me to be the remains of a whale.
Jim thinks Wilma and her mother wandered down the coast from the St. Lawrence Seaway. Wilma's mother either died or was shot to death, leaving the orphan calf all alone to fend for herself. But belugas hate to be alone.
In the wild, belugas live in large pods, up to thousands of individuals up in the Arctic, literally. But here's Wilma, lost, and she doesn't have any friends of her own type, so she's seeking out the companionship of whatever she can get, people.
Wilma is especially attached to Jim Johnson and his son Dana. Or is it Dana's rubber boots?
It's cuddling a bit. Another cuddle.
She plays games with them, even brings them a piece of kelp or a lobster from the ocean floor in her mouth.
I'm in the Zodiac, see?
This isn't SeaWorld. This isn't a trained animal that's been fed to do tricks. This is a wild animal, lives its own life out in the ocean, doing its own thing every single day, and yet it has invented a game that it plays with people. To make an analogy, imagine you're walking through the woods and a deer pulls a leaf off a branch and walks up to you and gives it to you and says, here's a leaf, you know, you take it from there. This is better than Flipper.
12 Celsius.
10 to 12 Celsius?
50 to 52 degrees.
Oh, that's toasty, huh? The plan is for Jim and his son Dana to take the small Zodiac out, while the rest of our crew hitches a ride with lobsterman Lloyd Dort. Searching for Wilma, Jim suggests we all head directly for her favorite spot, the red and white harbor buoy.
She seems to use it as a reference point. She'll go to the buoy and she generally rests. She's had enough to eat, she's had enough frolicking for the day, so she goes over to her buoy.
Wilma has a very special relationship with the buoy. Some say it's a kind of mother surrogate for her. I inspect the buoy and find out it's got Wilma's favorite things, a thick covering of kelp and an anchor chain that clanks.
I've noticed that if you're down around that buoy diving and you touch the chain, which I have, she has struck me on the right wrist really hard. And I think she told me that this is my chain, this is mother, you know, and I want you to find your own chain, you know.
But today, Wilma is playing shy. Perhaps she's feeding and can't be bothered. She keeps us waiting.
She's feeding. At high tide, that's when the fish come in and she's feeding. It's also the best time to photograph her, but she's just elusive.
Finally, Wilma comes to check us out. Oh, here she comes. Oh, look at her. From a distance, she appears as a white, almost mystical object. Small as far as whales go, perhaps 12 feet, 1,500 pounds. Up close, she is more impish, dolphin-like. She's curious, but keeps her distance. Wilma shows off a little, moving with all the grace of a ballerina. I get Wilma's undivided attention with a game of Watch the Kelp.
Belugas are the only whales that can move their necks as far. She has a more human appearance because of that, whereas normally a lot of whales are just these big things. Most whales are like this. They can't turn their necks and they can't bend their heads down, but a beluga has a very articulate neck. It can look side to side and it can look up and down, and you'll see sometimes Wilma will come up in the water straight, but then she'll bend her head around and look.
Wilma is right underneath of us here.
From time to time, we clamber out of the chill Nova Scotia waters to warm up. But each time, Wilma comes back as if to say, "Where are you going? Come and play." She lets me swim by her side. The most thrilling moment. I hold up my hand as if to greet some alien creature from a faraway planet, and Wilma comes to me. Question: how can you fall in love with a whale? Answer: easy. Most of the locals treat Wilma with care and respect, but some visitors are needlessly careless. Wilma's been hit numerous times.
When the propeller hits her, it goes whirling down her back and cuts her a whole bunch of times. She has scars in a little pattern where there'll be 6 or 7 of them parallel to each other all down her back, and that's from a propeller.
We are not on the bay long before Fisheries Officer Bill Berry stops by.
She's been cut now 5 times in 4 years.
What would you like them to keep their speed down to?
Just an idle from this buoy on the inside here till you get up inside the harbour there where the green buoy is at. Just idle through there, and this is pretty much her habitat here.
The fisheries officer has only been gone a few minutes when we see exactly what he's talking about. Though Wilma is in the immediate area, a speeding boat loaded with tourists races out to see her.
We have no concern whatsoever. That's why all the lacerations are on her back. No one really cares. No one cares.
So do you find Dana, are there 2 types of people when they come through here? Some are respectful of Wilma and some are not?
Some are respectful of her and some are definitely not. There's some people here are here for a biological reason and some other people here just for a financial reason.
For many, Wilma means much-needed tourist dollars for this town. Lloyd Hines runs the Belmont Resort and Golf Club. From here, tour boats depart to see Wilma. Lloyd sees her as money in the bank.
And they're not after the theme park experience. They're after the Wilma experience. And to have that kind of natural experience, Mary, how much would it cost to reconstruct what's going on out there if you wanted to design that and build it? Could you put a number on it? You couldn't do it. There's no amount of money that would do it.
But Jim Johnson, who perhaps loves Wilma best of all, hopes the little beluga finds her own happiness someday, wherever it may be.
If she left, I think there'd be a lot of sad people, but there'd be a lot of happy people knowing that likely she is safe, and that would be great because then she would go off maybe to raise her own family. It's okay. It's okay. But it would be like losing a friend.
Nova Scotians have a history that is forever tied to the sea. With nearly 4,500 miles of rugged coastline and a centuries-old shipping and fishing industry, the province's marine lore runs deep. Thousands of shipwrecks lie beneath these waters, and more than 600 lighthouses still line the coast. They represent the romance of the seafaring life and stand as testaments to its often treacherous realities. As a boy, Jim Johnson worked at the Port Bickerton Lighthouse.
My job was to assist the lightkeeper, that is, to keep the horns blowing when it was foggy and keep the lights lit when the sun set. And it had a certain magic to it. It was isolated, yet I was in touch and tune with the environment around me. It was just a wonderful experience. I just look back with nostalgia at those days and enjoyed it so much.
Several years ago, the Port Bickerton Light was replaced by an automated unit and was slated to be sold. Local townsfolk, afraid the light would fall into disrepair, organized to save it. Today, the community runs the fully restored light as an information center about Nova Scotia's lighthouse history. Helen Kaiser played a key role in the community's effort.
We want to be able to teach our children and our grandchildren and future generations, I guess, about lighthouses from the beginning, why they were and the humane aspect of them, how the lightkeepers saved many, many lives.
Lighthouses could not help the massive oil tanker Arrow when she hit a rock here in 1972. Badly damaged, the ship spilled nearly 2 million gallons of oil. It was one of the world's first major oil spills, and no one really knew how to deal with it.
Well, this was a disaster. One can imagine 2 million gallons of oil spreading its sort of sticky path across the coastline and around the shores and into the bays and coastal inlets. Needless to say, we didn't know how to really address that problem for the simple reason we never had the experience.
Within a week of running aground, the Arrow split in two and sank to the bottom of the sea. Now, 25 years later, we decided to go and have a look. What we found was not the rusting, oily hulk that I had expected. Rather, a place of otherworldly beauty, a marine reef of sorts, teeming with life.
You can try to manipulate Mother Nature and you can try to make things work your way in terms of the environment we live in, but Mother Nature will always persevere. Rather than just have a huge hulking mass on the bottom, Mother Nature has created an undersea landscape of fish and just beauty. It's a canvas drawn by a great artist we as humans can't duplicate.
In the end, the story of Nova Scotia is the story of its people and the sea. And in that sense, Wilma's story is only the latest chapter.